In today's episode, we continue our celebration of Bourbon Heritage Month by celebrating the incredible women of whiskey. We got the chance to sit down with Jackie Zykan, creator of Eau de Oak, a perfume line that uses whiskey as the base. Jackie is a master blender with a nose that knows. We talked to her about her perfume, her unique ability to isolate smells, and her journey in the whiskey world. We also announced some unique opportunities for our viewers. Welcome to Brewed and Boozed.
It's Paula
with Brewed and Boozed, and we are here with Jackie Zykan, master blender and founder and creator of Eau de Oak.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming and talking with us today.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'm really glad that we had the opportunity to connect in New Orleans.
I wish we had smell-o-vision because it smells
It
really
smells so
nice.
good in here right now. Absolutely. You can tell us a little bit about how you started in the whiskey industry.
Well, I didn't grow up going, one day I'm going to do bourbon. Like, that was not the goal at all. I actually was on a path to go to medical school. And while I was in college with studying for a biology and chemistry degree, I worked at the human hospital and was like, I don't know. So then I got a second job at the same time at an animal hospital as a tech and was like, well, maybe I'll channel it that way, right? Mm-hmm. No, I worked probably 56 hours a week when I was in undergrad. Like, I don't sit still very well. I just started bartending because I needed actual, like, cash in hand to pay the rent, right? Mm-hmm. And so enter Jackie in the world of booze, right? Fast forward, I graduated college, I got married, he got a job in Louisville, we had 48 hours to move, boom, 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 there we are, all of a sudden. And I had no reason to be there. I was like, how is the best way for me to sort of get integrated into the town and learn everybody's business? You go back into bartending because you're just sitting there talking to people, right? And so I started with a group there as a bartender, then moved it to bar manager, then beverage director, and it was a whiskey bar. And so keep in mind, I'm from Missouri, I'm not from Kentucky. Like, when I left Missouri, it was like flavored vodka wall, you know what I mean, and Bud Light, and like that's what you get. And I get to Kentucky, and I'm like, I don't even know what is this? What's the difference? And I just went deep dive. And so I picked up, different side gigs as I could. So I did work for Four Roses, for Heaven Hill, for Woodford, for Jack Daniels, for Copper and King's Brandy, for St. Germain. Like, I was all over the place. And then one day I got a phone call saying, like, your name came up in a meeting at Brown Foreman because they need someone that understands not only the bar side of things, but also the science side of things. And so worlds combine, and I ended up working for Old Forester for 7 years. So I left there about a year and a half ago, I guess almost 2 years ago, to start Hidden Barn with some friends. But Eau de Oak kind of came in at a weird in the journey. This was like, everyone during COVID was like, let me follow my passion project, what have you. I had already started studying perfumery when I was at Brown Foreman as a way to build my sensory bank. So, I mean, the industry today is so different than it was even when I first started getting into it, when you were like going through tastings and people were like, oh, I'm getting almonds. And now you got the guy in the back or lady in the back of the room going, well, I'm getting hits of diacetyl. And you're like, just stop, please. Like, don't be that person. Like, because half the room doesn't know what that word is, but like, you feel good about yourself now. But I'm like, okay, but this is where we are. Like, it used to be that you have to get more and more and more granular the more and more educated the audience gets. Mm-hmm. And especially, I will say this, I usually don't lean into this too much. I don't think about it too much. But as a female, when you're presenting to a room full of whiskey connoisseurs, if you trip up on your words, or if you are not above them in deep dive, then you've lost all credibility. It's a weird standard. And so I'm like, okay, I need to refamiliarize myself with the chemical compounds, and perfumery was the best way to do that because you can get the isolates and then learn them and go about your day. Well, I mean, I would go and pick up my kid from school every day and be like, I know they think something is up because I smell like straight booze. Like I've been in the warehouse, I'm covered in like dirt, like my fingernails are all grimy and dirty, like covered in char, and I reek of whiskey because it's just been spilling on me from the barrels. And I was like, man, like I'm not drunk, I swear, I just smell like whiskey.
Yeah.
And then anytime I had a single barrel selection in the warehouse, people walk in and they go, oh, I wish I could just bottle that. And I'm like,
Ding, ding, ding.
why don't we just bottle that? So Eau de Oak was born out of those things. It uses bourbon as a base and contributes to the sensory profile of it. But every single one of those is a moment I had when I was drunk on bourbon, and a capture of all the sensory elements that I remember from it: smells, taste, the person, the season, the place, whatever. That goes into that bottle. So it's like a little memory.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's
Cool.
awesome.
The seminar last year with you, where you had envelopes of things.
Yes.
And,
It was so cool.
The
and
sensory seminars are so
and,
fun.
Yeah, and you made the comment that not everyone can smell these things. So I guess there is a gift, if you will, in that you're able to smell things that many people aren't. Is it something you train for, or is it something that just you're just great at it?
Well, I don't know. I will never consider myself great at it, but I know that like I am super sensitive to it. So there's different parts to this, right? There's with taste and smell, there's the sensitivity you're born with, which is just how many taste buds do you have, right? You got one taste bud versus 1,000 taste buds. Obviously, there's gonna be a difference in your perception. I am what is known as an HSP. Like 20% of the population is a highly sensitive person. So it's smell, it's taste, but it's every sense. So like even like light, sound, all of it, like I get really like overstimulated very quickly. But part of this is also like, oh, okay, well, what is considered like I don't know, some people call it a neurodivergent trait, if you will. It's just a thing. But I've used that unknowingly and channeled it into a career. There's a pro and a con to being that sensitive though, right? Because like you can smell wonderful things very well and you can smell terrible things very well too, and it's just part of it. But you can train yourself, and like I was trying to do with the perfumery, you can build your bank, right? Because if you've never smelled cinnamon, you're never gonna pick up a glass of whiskey and go, I smell cinnamon. You have to lock in, this is what that stimulus is in my brain when that happens, so I can identify it in other circumstances. So you can build it, but there is sort of a baseline sensitivity to it in the first place. And some people in this industry with some of the most sensitive palates and noses have their own blind spots too. So everyone's got, their stuff. I haven't found a blind spot yet, but I'm sure it's there.
You were very good at smelling mold. It seems like it's very helpful in this industry.
In quality assurance, it's very helpful. Human beings in general, this is so interesting. I had this conversation with someone last night because they were like, oh, where did Libra go? Libra has a lot of jasmine as a top note in it. So when you first smell it, you're like, it kind of smells like this earthy, like after the rain smell, but it dissipates pretty quick because it's a pretty light molecule. But jasmine is one of the molecules that in sensory detection with whiskey, we want to pay very close attention to because moldy grain and things of that sort will yield that note. But it's interesting to me because we think of certain creatures in this world as being sensitive to certain things. Like sharks can smell blood from so far away, and like one drop in like the whole ocean. Human beings are hundreds of times more sensitive to jasmine than sharks are to blood. Like we are super sensitive to it. So if anybody is like, I don't smell it, I don't pick up on that, I don't want to say like it's like a black and white situation, but like I would lean on the edge of saying like, okay, well, you just have a blind spot there, because human beings in general are incredibly sensitive to jasmine, incredibly, and that's that mold note.
What was the first fragrance that you created when you did your wine? Or has it transformed into something else, or?
It absolutely has, because this was like tinkering at first, right? I worked in an industry where I couldn't wear anything with fragrance, like even like skincare products, like fragrance free, because you're going to go into a lab with a bunch of other super sensitive people and like you're just going to ruin everyone's day. Like you're like, I can't smell anything but your shampoo right now. So I was like fully neutralized scent wise, except for whiskey spilling on my clothes, for like a decade, right? And this is so weird because back in the day, I was like your diehard, like, Bath and Body Works had that semi-annual sale and you loaded up and like you just slathered yourself in like sun-ripened raspberry. Or in COVID, I could smell good all the time because I wasn't in the office. We were all working from home, right? And so that's when all this kind of first started. And I started very small with it. I ordered all my different isolates and started tinkering and became really interested in the way that perfume is structured, because I think I will speak on American whiskey specifically, not old world whiskey, Scotland and all that stuff. But for the most part, a lot of batching and blending in American whiskey is done haphazardly. But with perfume, it's very intentionally done and structured in top, middle, and base notes. And the main difference between top, middle, and base notes, if you want to make it super, super simple, is bring it down to molecular weight of that aromatic compound. Top notes are going to be the first thing you smell, but be the first thing to dissipate. They're super volatile. So think of like when you first go into a glass of whiskey, if you proofed it down quite a bit so it's not just alcohol in your face, those first notes, the citrus notes, the floral notes, all those like bright things, those are your top notes, and they're probably going to be there, but then the base notes will start to come through. Base notes are what's going to last the longest, so woody notes. You think of it as like a plant, the things that grow on the periphery and the outside of your top notes, and then you start sinking down in base notes for all your super grounded, rooty stuff. So oak, obviously, is in every single one of these because it's made out of bourbon. So it's always, 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 as they fade out, it always just ends up smelling like you literally were just drinking whiskey and it came out of your pores, like, because that's like the last note left on it, right?
Mm-hmm. So do the molecules weigh different amounts? Sort of like
the heavier
when
it is,
pour drinks and you have you have to
can
layer
think of it
them
in those terms for sure. The heavier and the more solidly bonded all the parts of that aromatic compound are, the more energy it takes to break them up, right? So things that are just super fragile and volatile, they'll dissipate very quickly, but everything else is kind of sticky, kind of hangs out. So as I start playing with all this stuff at home, right, and I'm like, oh, well, this is a base, let's make sure we have this, this, and this, every single blend. And then I was like, this is so boring. Like, I understand balance. I'm all about it. I'm all about it with whiskey, especially. Like, that is like the goal, no matter what the flavor is, it's always balance and structure. And I try to incorporate that in here, but then it also gets to the point where I'm like, I don't have to. This is mine, and I can these are my memories, and it is whatever. I can tweak it out a little bit to where it's going to make sense and not just be like right there in your face and then disappear. But for the most part, like, I don't know. But it became very interesting to me because then I was like, what if I started blending whiskey the same way people blend perfume and pay attention to notes as far as top, middle, and base? The two don't translate perfectly, but it's interesting to be aware of it, but like the two are kind of different because like something that you're consuming is much different than the experience of something that is wearing on your skin.
We'll be right back with more of our interview with Jackie. If you'd like to meet Jackie and the other women of whiskey, be sure to get your tickets for New Orleans Bourbon Fest. Tickets are available now at www.neworleansbourbonfest.com. The event takes place March 19th through the 23rd, 2025. Use the code BREWED10 to get a discount. We'll see you there. Now more with Jackie Zykan.
Let's get back to the original question, like, how did this start? So it started like, I'd order like 24 bottles off of Amazon and then like whatever, just like give them to people. And then it was like, oh, well, now we need to design a label and now we need to do a website. And it was never like, here's my plan. In 5 years, I'm going to be this, this, and this. It was like, well, I guess we need more of that. Well, I guess I need more of that. And it just kept growing. So like, it's funny to me when I think back, like literally like 2 years ago, and I'm like sitting in my living room, like printing out labels on my printer on like Avery blank sheets, you know what I mean? And like hand applying them. And I'm like, okay, now I'm like, there's a pallet of glass from China showing up next week. And I'm like, how did this happen? Like, where did we get here? But yeah, it's just slowly doing its thing.
Which is your favorite?
I wear the most of. I wear a lot of Sun Moon Venus. That one. But if Jasmine is a problem, heads up.
We'll be all right.
Okay.
We'll live on the edge.
We'll live on the edge. We're gonna be risky and smell some jasmine. It's got jasmine in there, but it's got a lot of grapefruit. It's got a lot of like really like, it's like a soft feminine.
Yeah, very feminine light kind of smell.
Base Camp, this dark one. That one has a little bit of a smoky note to it. A lot of oak moss. It leans a little bit more masculine. I wear those two. I wear Libra a lot. Very jasmine, sage, geosmin, all of those notes. That's like, it just lightly snowed in the spring in the Utah desert in a bottle. is basically where
The
that came
descriptions
from.
are so good.
But that's where it came from. That was
love
like
it.
the moment that I was like, I have to shove this in here.
Yeah, that is nice.
Yeah.
So do you feel like these fragrances can go like for
They're
any
all
wedding,
yeah,
unisex,
absolutely.
whatever, whoever wants to wear
Absolutely.
whatever?
Yeah. Because like some lean more quote unquote feminine, floral, whatever, and some lean more woodsy, masculine.
I like that one. That's nice.
But people ask me, they're like, that's a Indigo Child. That's one I made for my mom for a Mother's Day present last year, and then I decided to just keep selling it. Lots of iris in there.
It's pretty.
But yeah, because people are like, is it cologne or is it perfume? And I'm like, I don't want to like.
Is there a difference between
There's
the
a
two?
huge difference between the two, and it has to do with fragrance oil concentration. It has nothing to do with gender appeal whatsoever. But we think of it that way, as like cologne is for men and perfume is for ladies, blah, 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 blah. But no, cologne actually has very, very, very little fragrance oil in it compared to eau de parfum and then parfum above that. This eau de oak is a play on eau de parfum, but this is like 25% fragrance oil, 22 to 25% depending on the blend, which puts it in the parfum category, but
And get these on your website.
Mhm.
And are they in stores?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
where else can I find them?
So you can go to eau-de-oak.com and find everything there. And then there is a list of retailers on that site as well. So they're all over.
Fragrances come, you can get like a multi-pack, right?
Yeah, you
which is
can.
kind of cool. So you can try, you don't have to just pick one, you can try
Yeah,
multiples.
the little roadie sets. Those are preset online, but when I do markets like we're doing here in New Orleans, I like to let people just pick whatever four they want to put in there.
Is there anything coming up that you can tell us about that you're working on, or any new? We always like to ask people this. Sometimes they can't say, but anything coming up in the works, either with the fragrance or with any of your other.
Barn is going incredibly well, and we've got some new stuff coming out in the next like month or two.
Cool.
Some really, really, really delicious stuff. So that's all I can say about it.
That's all good. That's good. That's perfect.
There are things coming,
Stay
and they
tuned,
are
stay
delicious. Yes. Like literally, like this was a marriage, and that was a hinge date, and that was a date. Like my whole life is like captured in this like whole collection.
I think
Y'all like.
There's always something going on.
She's
Always
a busy
something
lady.
going on.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. You're actually headed off to do a women's panel.
I am.
If you'd like to try Eau de Oak for yourself, go to eau-de-oak.com and choose your fragrances. Put in Brew20 for your discount code. We'll also be hosting a giveaway on our social media channels, YouTube, and Spotify, so be sure and sign up. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.